York is one of the most fascinating and well-conserved cities in England. And with a 2,000-year-old heritage steeped in Roman and Viking history, York is a tourist hotspot attracting millions of visitors each year. But when you spend all your money on a coach or train tickets to York and you have no money left to spend on museums and other expensive activities, what are the free alternatives? In this video, I'll share with you a couple of things you can do in this wonderful city that won't cost you any money. Also, we will explore some of the pubs because these are the best places to socialize and learn more about any given city with a friendly local. York Railway Museum is our first destination. This is the largest railway museum in the UK and showcases 300 years of transport history with over 100 locomotives scattered across 20 acres. Although situated in the north of England, York was at the center of the railway revolution in the 19th century and is now one of the best connected cities in Britain. The Railway Museum opened in 1975 in the former York North Locomotive Depot and welcomed over 1 million visitors a year. Here, you'll learn about the locomotives that changed the way we travel, like the Evening Star, which was the last steam locomotive ever built for British Railways, and the only one to be given a name rather than just a number. This locomotive operated for only 5 years, but has remained one of the largest and most powerful engines ever built in Britain. When you walk around the hall, you can smell a mixture of locomotive and engine oil. The size of the vehicles is impressive. You are literally surrounded by giant engines, which were once built to be admired and experienced to the fullest. A train that you can experience here is the Eurostar, which has connected Britain to Europe through the Channel Tunnel since the 14th of November 1994, carrying a total of over 150 million passengers, with numbers growing to over 10 million a year. The hall is large enough to accommodate a cafe with 2 sitting areas and 2 gift shops to immortalize your experience in this museum. The Railway Museum is free to visit, but you still have to book online to get in. Not far from the Railway Museum are the historic walls surrounding York. This is literally a rite of passage if you are visiting the city. These impressive walls are free to access and offer a picturesque view of the city. They are open from 8 a.m. to dusk. Measuring 3.4 kilometers long, the city walls are the longest and the most complete medieval town walls in England. A walk all around the walls takes about 2 hours of breathtaking views across the city. Scrolling the city walls is not suitable for people in wheelchair or with reduced mobility. And if you decide to bring your children along, I advise you to be very careful as some parts of the walls don't have railings. The walls were built mainly in the 13th century on top of all the earth banks. They are today the main attractions of York and represent an important part of the local history. The medieval city walls include 4 main gates, also known as bars: Botham Bar, Monk Bar, Wormgate Bar, and Milkgate Bar. Monk Bar was built in several stages, beginning in the early 14th century. Its top story was added in 1484 during the reign of Richard III. As well as being part of the city's defense system, Monk Bar has been used as a temporary prison and a police house. The buildings now houses the Richard III experience. Not far from Monk Bar is Botham Bar. The name originates from the 12th century when it came to be known as the Bar of the Booth, meaning market booth, referring to the weekly market held here by St. Mary's Abbey. Until the 13th century, Botham Bar was known as Galmontleith, or Gate of Galmoor, the name of the hill on which St. Mary's Abbey was built. Next on our list of the places to visit in York for free are the York Museum Gardens. The land was given by royal grant in 1828 to the Yorkshire Philosophical Society under the condition that botanical gardens would be established on the site. In 1830, they established the Yorkshire Museum to house their geological and archaeological collections. The botanical gardens were built on the site of the former St. Mary's Abbey, built in 1088 by William the Conqueror. St. Mary's Abbey slowly fell into ruins when King Henry VIII banned all monasteries in England in the 15th century as a consequence of his reformation of the church. The ruins we now see are all that remains of one of the wealthiest and most powerful Benedictine monasteries in England. The stone walls that surrounded the abbey were built in the 1260s, and they remain the most complete set of abbey walls in the country. Near the entrance to the York Botanical Gardens are the ruins of the entrance passageway to St. Leonard's Hospital, one of the oldest and largest hospitals in medieval England. Not far from York Museum Gardens is the Exhibition Pub, a converted house built in 1702. The pub is exactly what it says on the tin. It is an exhibition of Victoriana, with its soft lighting, its stained glass windows, and its orderly clutter of 19th century memorabilia. The density of objects on the walls, mixed with the saturated dark colors, can make you feel a bit dizzy. The red paint and the presence of perfect strangers drinking beer signal that you are in fact in a pub and not in an actual Victorian living room. We chose this pub because it claimed to have the largest beer garden in York, but I cannot confirm this claim as I forgot to have a look at it. So we will just take their word for face value. The exhibition doubles as a hotel with en-suite accommodations in the upstairs rooms from £100 a night. York is rich in museums and historic buildings, but because this video is about things to do for free, we're gonna skip all of that and focus on activities that won't make us skint. So our next stop is the John Snow Memorial. Dr. John Snow was a Victorian physician, a pioneer in the fields of anesthesia and epidemiology. He was famous for his tracing of the source of a cholera outbreak in London Soho and confirming that it was a waterborne disease. And not far from the John Snow Memorial is the Cholera Burial Ground, which houses 20 of the 185 victims of a plague of cholera which lasted from the 3rd to the 22nd of June 1832 in York. And to stay in the burial theme, Dick Turpin Burial Ground in St. George's Graveyard is another place you can visit for free. Richard Dick Turpin was born in 1705 in Hampstead, Essex. He was a famous highwayman, a member of the violent Gregory Gang, a convicted cattle and horse thief, and a murderer. After being arrested and transferred to York Castle in October 1738, he was declared guilty on 2 charges of horse theft and murder. Dick Turpin was sentenced to death by hanging on the 7th of April 1839. Dick Turpin Burial was conveniently located behind the Travelodge Hotel we were staying at, and the pub called Postern Gate was affiliated to our hotel, and this is where we had our breakfast. The pub stands a few feet from the medieval tower called Fishergate Postern and is just around the corner from Fishergate Bar. The pub is huge and very minimalist in terms of decoration. It has a lot of light coming in and many windows. This pub is the opposite of the exhibition pub we went to earlier in the video. Ricky chose to have a traditional breakfast, but I kept it simple with a slice of bread and a cup of tea. What I liked about this pub was the location and the picturesque view. The postern from which the pub takes its name was built around 1500 on the banks of the River Foss, which was then much wider and now passes behind the site. A stroll along the river is another free thing to do in York. It may be taken for granted, but according to the Barcelona Institute for Global Health, walking along a source of water might boost your overall health and mood. The River Foss runs through Foss Crooks Woods near Holston Reservoir and continues south through the Vale of York to the River Ouse near the center of York. York's main river is the River Ouse, which is a 60-mile-long river crossing the city centre, and it is the sixth longest river in the UK. You can walk by the River Ouse and admire all the beautiful buildings surrounding it, or enjoy a refreshing boat cruise. The choice is yours. Strolling across the city of York, there is one thing that you notice straight away. It is the abundance of pubs. It is said that York has a pub for every day of the year, and we decided to explore some of them during our 24-hour stay in York. In the evening, we went to the Stone Roses pub. There is a saying in York that the streets are called gates, the gates are called bars, and the bars are called pubs. Stone Roses Bar, situated not far from the River Ouse, is known for playing indie music and hosting live music events. I really like the edgy and quirky interior with a nod to independent British musicians. The pub caters mostly to students and is quite well known outside of York. It is often regarded as a go-to pub when visiting the city. You cannot visit York without walking along its oldest and most famous narrow street called the Shambles. It is one of the best preserved shopping streets in Europe. The buildings date back as far as the 13th century, but the street itself was already mentioned in the Domesday Book of William the Conqueror in 1086. The street was originally home to butchers, with each shop specializing in a different meat. The name is thought to derive from shamble, an Anglo-Saxon word for the shelves outside the shops where meat was laid out. The street was made narrow by design to keep the meat out of direct sunlight. Today, the Shambles is home to a wide range of eclectic shops and is the most visited street in York. Since we are on the topic of narrow streets, York is home to a couple of snickelways that make the city look like a maze. Snickelways, first coined by author Mark W. Jones in 1983, are snickets or alleys, many of them ancient, that run between York streets. Wipma Gate, seen here on the right-hand side, is the shortest street or snickelway in the city, and it is said to be the site of a medieval whipping post where criminals would be tied to and flogged for their crimes. After York's smallest street, let me introduce you to York's smallest pub, the Bluebell on Foss Gate. Foss Gate used to be a slum area where York's local poor and Irish immigrants lived in squalor. The Bluebell building was erected around 1600 and was originally a warehouse. It became a pub in 1798. When it was decided to convert the warehouse into a pub, the owners came across a number of church bells that were being kept in storage whilst nearby church towers were renovated. These bells were made out of blue gunmetal, hence the name the Bluebell. The pub consists in 2 rooms divided by a window. The window in what we now call the back room was originally the pub's front window. In January 1903, George Edwin Robinson and wife Annie were the publicans. They extensively refurbished and decorated the pub, and since 1903 The pub interior and decor have remained the same. The rooms are very small but cozy and kind of stimulate a conversation with your neighbor. The impressive Herbert House is the oldest surviving building on pavement and used to be the home to 4 Lord Mayors from 1573 to 1702. Built in around 1545, the house is named after the Herbert family, a wealthy dynasty of merchants and Lord Mayors. Lord Mayor John Peckett lived there with his wife Alice in 1702. Adjoining Herbert House is Lady Alice Peckett's yard, named after the Lord Mayor's wife. It is another snickelway that is worth exploring. There was a small courtyard set in the middle section of Herbert House, together with a large 17th century stairway giving access to the rear of the building. York is said to be a very haunted city, and the Golden Fleece pub, conveniently situated next door to Herbert House, is the most haunted pub in the city. So let's have a look at it. The Golden Fleece, a Grade II listed building, has been standing strong since at least 1503. It is said that it was once owned by members of the Merchant Adventurers Guild who traded in fleeces and wool. Hence the Golden Fleece hanging above the entrance door. It has been an inn since 1656, and in the early 18th century it was owned by John and Alice Peckett. The pub is on the ground floor. There are 4 guest rooms above and 15 ghosts haunting the building. One of the ghosts is believed to be the spirit of Lady Alice Peckett. Many guests reported seeing and hearing a woman going up and down the stairs in the middle of the night. The Golden Fleece has one permanent resident who sits at the bar. It is a skeleton named Saul. And to remain on the ghost theme, not far from the Golden Fleece is another haunted pub called the 3 Tons. The pub was first licensed in 1782 and was named after the 3-ton barrels which were placed at the rear of the pub since it didn't have a cellar. Each ton held 2 16 gallons of beer. The pub started as a coaching inn with accommodations on the upper floor. The beams are the original woodwork, and in one of them is engraved the date when the house was first built. It is said that the pub has 3 ghosts as permanent guests. One ghost is a man who always sits at the same place at the front of the pub and smokes his pipe. Another ghost is said to be the spirit of Sarah, a former barmaid here. And the last one is presumably the ghost of a previous publican from the 1900s, and he lives in the cellar. Ellie, the lovely barmaid, was kind enough to share a lot of information about York during our 25-minute conversation, and she had this to say about the ghost.
Actually the one in the cellar, so you'll find that he'll throw stuff at you, like kind of thing, or you'll have like the lights go off on you, or like you'll hear something like someone laugh in your ear, or like shuffling and stuff like that. Whenever you hear that, you're like, bloody give over, kind of thing, and he'll stop. But it's like, even like with Sarah and stuff, when she's someone who likes to have conversation, even though she's not here, she likes someone talking to her. Yeah. So it's like, you know, if you're kind of on your own, you're just like, oh, you're all right, Sarah, how you doing, all this lot. People probably think you're bonkers, but...
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, but it's really cool. I love working here. It's just...
One of York's most emblematic buildings is York Minster. This Gothic-style church is one of the world's most magnificent cathedrals and probably the greatest cathedral in the United Kingdom. The first Christian church on the site has been dated to 627, and it was rebuilt on a large scale to its current state between 1220 and 1472. Visiting York Minster is free for locals, but for visitors of the city, it is minimum £18 per adult. Another free activity that can be done in York is building spotting. It is exactly like train spotting or bird watching. It is a hobby of mine that I find very stimulating, and it consists of walking around an area and spotting interesting buildings, taking pictures of them, and then looking for information on the internet about them. You learn a lot, and sometimes one information leads to another, and it really stimulates your curiosity. For example, this building, Betty's Cafe and Tea Room, is very popular. There was a queue all around the building, and I found out that Betty's Cafe is roughly on the site of a former hotel called Harker, which was demolished in 1929. Then, not far from Betty's Cafe, we found the Harker's pub. What a coincidence! Harker's is a gastropub named after the Harker's Hotel mentioned earlier. The building was erected in 1823 for the Yorkshire Insurance Company. Harker's is at the heart of York Roman's heritage, as it stands on the site of the historic Roman Praetorian Gate. The gate was the main entrance to the city of York. Let's end this visit of York with a delicious Yorkshire pudding, which was amazing from what I have been told. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. See you soon!